Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to a contractor who sold his contracting business after he got it to 150 employees and then started a software company in the same contracting space back to that same group. So we're going to be talking to Brian Clayton. Now, he runs My Green Powel. But before he did that, he started as a kid in Tennessee mowing lawns with a push mower. We're going to hear about his journey and his path and how he got there. Now, if you don't have a landscaping business, you might think, why the heck would I want to listen to this episode? It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. This is about the business of the contracting business. This is about making promises to homeowners and corporate accounts and civil work and institutional work, and then making those promises come to life and getting paid for it so that you have a life back home with your family. So don't get caught up in the fact that this is a landscaper and you're not a landscaper. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the business of the construction business. We're talking about the business of the contracting business. Brian Clayton is very insightful. He's a great speaker. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what we get up to in this interview. We're supposed to be talking about the three things I think you should know, ... But let's see what Brian and I get up to in this episode. We'll see you on the other side. Mr. Brian Clayton, how are you?
Dominic, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
I'm so pleased to have you with me. Last time we were talking, you were traveling in parts unknown, and yeah.
Yeah, back in Nashville, Tennessee now, so all good.
Are you? I've heard Nashville's a great place to go and hang out.
Yeah, it's unrecognizable from where it was 5 or 10 years ago. So yeah, we're the cool city right now.
Yeah. People tell me that, it used to be everybody wants to go to Vegas when it's, time to go with your buddies. But then you hear you should probably hit New Orleans. And then the other one I hear about is Nashville.
Yes, right. Yeah, y'all come on down.
Y'all come on down. Are you originally from Tennessee?
Actually, yeah, I grew up in Middle Tennessee, and so that's one of the, I guess I could say, one of the lucky things that happened to me, because I was able to grow my business alongside a growing community. Nashville has been on a tear for about 30 years.
Yeah. Oh, so you're right in. You said you grew up in a place called Middle.
Yeah, well, Middle Tennessee. So the whole Nashville kind of region is
Okay.
considered Middle Tennessee. I grew up in a suburb outside of Nashville called Murfreesboro.
Okay.
And
I was going to say
has been growing, so is Nashville.
Yeah, if somebody called their place Middle, they kind of gave up on trying to name
Yeah,
the city,
yeah,
right?
they gave up a long time ago. Hold on a second. Let me turn this off 1 second.
Sure. Well, while we're waiting for Brian, I want you guys to pay attention because Brian's got a pretty cool background. We're going to dig into that here in a second, and learn how he grew his business from some pretty humble beginnings. Are you back there, Brian?
I'm back.
Yeah, I see you've got your headset on. You look like an airline pilot. Hey, let me start with a question. Brian Clayton, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these contractors all over the world?
So, yeah, currently I'm CEO and co-founder of a company called Green Powel. And Green Powel is a mobile app that works like DoorDash or Instacart or Uber, but for lawn care services. So
Wow.
If you're a homeowner and need to get your grass cut, rather than calling around all over Yelp or Facebook or Craigslist, you just download Green Powel, pop your address in, and somebody comes and takes care of the chore for you. Right. Green Powel is a 10-year overnight success. My two co-founders and I been at it for 10 years, and
a 10-year overnight success.
Yeah. The first few years were really, really challenging, but we stuck with it, and now we're nationwide in the United States. Around 300,000 people using the app to get their grass cut, and 32,000 contractors using it to run their business.
Sorry, 300,000 people use it, and what was the contractor number?
32,000. 32,000 small lawn care service providers use it to run their business. Yeah.
When I was a kid, it's the one thing I didn't do. I mean, I mowed a few lawns, but I wish I'd gotten serious about it. It's so easy to grow that business.
Yeah. It's a great business to cut your teeth on and to learn the ins and outs of what it means to run a small business. Nobody teaches us how to run a small business, not in high school, not in college. Even if you go to business school, nobody teaches us how to run a business. A service-based business like a lawn business is great for that.
It's my favorite thing in any business is recurring revenue. If I get a penny a day, a penny a month, but I get it from everybody, I'm a very, very happy guy.
That's right. I heard a quote one time, one of my first customers, and he said the exact same thing to me. And he said, if you want to dine with the classes, sell to the masses. And
Yeah,
that stuck with me.
that's right. Now, are you a tech guy or are you a contractor guy? Like if we look back at the beginning when you said, honey, I assume you're married, honey, I'm going to go out on my own. Are you some sort of tech guru wizard or are you a contractor guy?
I think, well, I was able to make the transition from one to the other. So I started off
Oh,
very much a blue collar entrepreneur. I started mowing grass when I was a young kid,
love it.
and stuck with a lawn mowing business all through high school, all through college.
Yeah,
Over a 15-year period of time, I ended up building one of the larger landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee. Got that
really.
company over 150 employees. Yeah, I got it over
Wow.
10
Hold
months.
on, hold on. Oh, you're blowing right past all the good stuff. So you started from zero, like you with your dad's lawnmower type thing?
Exactly, exactly.
I was
My
kidding
dad,
because that's what I did.
my, my dad's push mower, where the self-propelled on it was broken, so pushing it was even harder.
That's why your
And then,
shoulders are so big. If you guys
yeah,
can't see this
maybe that's where
on YouTube,
yeah,
you said you're Brian. You're a pretty stout guy there. I don't know if I'd argue with you over
was
something.
pushing that darn lawnmower with no self-propel, with it being broken.
Yeah,
But yeah, started off just being a push mower, and little by little over a 15-year period of time built it into a real business.
150. So now there's lots of different flavors of landscapers. Did you just do lawn maintenance? Did you do hardscaping? Like what? Take us through that first transition from you to about five guys, if you can remember that. Or
Yeah, it was very much just maintenance in the early days. So just me, mowing people's yards. And then as time
yeah,
went on, I got my first helper, second helper. I got a little crew together, I got some manpower together, got some resources pulled together. And then I started getting requests from my clientele for other services that they needed done. And then I hooked up with a client that had a rental property business. And so I started working on his real estate for him,
nice.
and learned a little bit about the real estate business passively through him. And so I was able to kind of grow my business alongside what my customers' needs were. And then as time went on, I started to realize, wow, I really would like to scale this into a real company. And I started going after commercial contracts. And
Ah,
I guess it was year 5 or 6, I realized I really wasn't in the landscaping business. I was in the sales business.
oh, Brian, boy, it sounds like you've been listening to my show because, well, I remind everybody here, we're not in the business of whatever we do, cabinet maker, roofer, framer, window guy. It doesn't matter, electrician. We are business people who happen to be a contractor. And
That's
it's
right.
because we've made a shift from being a contractor who just runs a crew. And do you remember what brought that mental shift on for you?
Yeah, for me it was well, I read a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and that's like an awesome book on just
Isn't it
what
the
it means
greatest? Yeah.
to run a small business. And one thing that Michael talks about in that book is the mental shift between working in your business versus on your business.
Yeah.
And as simple as that sounds, as business owners at almost every level, we get bogged down in the working on the in the business part. And we're just busy all day, and then we're exhausted at the end of the day, and then we think we're actually making progress
Yeah.
when we spend little time working on the business. And so it took me a long time to figure that out. And once I started working on the business, I started to realize, well, I need to develop a sales system,
Mm,
from prospecting new customers to meeting up with those folks, to presenting offers to them, to closing and keeping them. And how do we like break that down into bite-sized chunks? And that
right.
took a couple years. And then I started to realize, the grass cutting and the landscaping and the hardscapes and we did fence work, we did a lot of things, was
Oh,
all a byproduct of our sales system. And
mhm.
that's really the business we were in, was the best sales system, and customer satisfaction system, in our little market, in our industry.
Yeah. Very, it's interesting that you read that book. Now, for people who haven't read it, I've mentioned it on the show a number of times. It was a big game changer for me as well. The book is called The E-Myth Revisited, and the author is Michael Gerber, like the baby food, but
That's right.
probably a different guy. But the subtitle is interesting in that book: Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It.
Yeah.
It's,
What a great
anyways,
title.
the book is old. It's been around for I don't know how long.
I think 20 years at least. It's and
Yeah,
the fundamentals of it are the same today as they were then.
yeah. Anybody listening right now, if you're looking for a book to read or a book to listen to as an audio, definitely listen to the E-Myth Revisited. It's, just because it's old doesn't mean it's out of style. It is just as relevant today as ever. I call it the most painful book I ever read.
Yeah, because you're sitting there listening to it or reading it, and you're like, "This is my life."
Yeah. So I remember reading it, and we were in a small 2-bedroom townhouse. I was living with my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we're the place is pretty small. But I was pacing up and down the living room reading it, and this is why it's the most painful book I ever read, because I'd read 2 pages and then I would close it and smack it against my head and then keep reading. She's like, my wife, she's like, what are you doing?
Okay?
I'm like, this book is fantastic, but I'm doing things all wrong. And I had to be the one that understood, okay, this guy's speaking the truth, but it's hard to set that time aside. You've mentioned a couple times your work on the business instead of in it. And I mean, how did you do that? Because you're covered in gas and lawn clippings. You're wearing your boots. You got a sleeveless shirt on, like you're hot and you're tired after a day of mowing the lawns in Tennessee. How can others learn from you about to peel that part of time aside to work on the business?
Yes, it's really hard because, like you said, you're managing by like organized chaos on a daily basis, and you've got 100 emails before you even get to the office, and you've got a line of the way my days were running a landscaping company with 150 employees was, by the time I got to the office, there was a line of people outside the office, and each one of them had a problem, and I had to figure out ways to solve those problems. So it's like there was no time to work on the business in that moment. It was just very much like, let's put these fires out. And so what I had to do was start coming in on Sundays, and I would just try to figure out a way on Sunday to give 2 or 3 or 4 hours to just focus on one thing. Just pick the thing, almost like an emergency room in terms of triage. What is the most important thing that's happening all the time?
Yeah.
And how can I develop a system and a process to fix that? And something else that I've learned over the last few years is the Toyota methodology of asking why 5 times. Why did this happen? And ask 5 times. So we have a customer. Customer's upset. Customer's upset because we showed up late. Okay, well, why did we show up late? Well, because the tech didn't realize that the last job was going to take twice time. Well, why didn't he understand that it was going to take twice time? Well, because when we sent him out there, he didn't have the right tools on the truck, and he had to like go drive an hour and drive an hour back. Okay, well, why didn't he have the right tools on the truck? Well, because he left the shop without the right tools. Well, why did he leave? Why did he leave the shop without the right tools? Well, because there's no checklist in the morning for him to go through and make sure he's got everything he needs before he leaves. So actually, this is a checklist problem. This is not a tech problem. It's not a customer problem. It's a checklist problem. So you just do that over and over again
and fix it. Yeah.
And then focus on one thing at a time. The problem is we get so overwhelmed by all the things that need improving that we don't just focus on one thing. And I think if you just do that over and over again, these things begin to take care of themselves. And then before you know it, you've got maybe Friday to work on the business, or you got Thursday to work on the business. And as time goes on, you get more time to work on the business than in the business.
I love that you said that. And it's so funny that you mentioned the Toyota way, because I listened to it as an audiobook. I don't know if you know this, but it's a 17-hour audiobook.
Ooh, wow.
But I was just on a 10-day hunting trip into northern BC, which takes 2 days to drive to from my house. Perfect. So my poor dad he doesn't even care about the Toyota way. He doesn't care about the Japanese senseis who teach that's what we listened to on the drive.
And put him to sleep.
Oh yeah. He was out anyways. He's 83. He's happy just to go hunting. But I'm like, oh my God, I get to listen to this book. So incredibly humbling in its simplicity.
Yeah.
And it's it's nothing. There's no fireworks. It's just like you said, root cause. Identify the issue and then backtrack. Ask why 5 times until you find the issue, and then fix that issue. And then there will be another issue. But that doesn't mean failure. That means, okay, we fixed one, go fix something else. And understand that's the organic way our company, yours, mine, needs to grow.
Exactly. And if you work in that little small circle of things you can do, it gets your influence gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, then you have time to work on the business and do things like the best employee training system that you could ever dream of. And something like that will solve a lot of your problems. And versus just like, training by shooting from the hip, bringing somebody on and like letting them make a bunch of mistakes and then learning from their failures, and then that's causing a lot of problems for you. So it's a matter of trying to find the time to do those high leverage things that are important but aren't urgent. And a lot of times we're bogged down with the things that are urgent but aren't necessarily important.
Because we're letting the
And
fires run our lives,
exactly.
not
And
stacking the logs for the fire.
something you just mentioned that stands out to me, as I was shifting from a blue collar entrepreneur to a tech entrepreneur, was finding the time to listen to audiobooks, finding the time to
Mm,
listen to podcasts, because as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you are going to have to level up alongside your business. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to get new skill sets.
that's right.
And
It's me.
it's
It,
one of the cool things about it.
yeah.
It's like you are evolving. And so it's like, well, when do I do this? How do I find the time? Well, your vehicle, your car, your truck is going to become a classroom. It's going to run on two things. It's going to run on gas and educational material. And all the windshield time is time for you to level up and time for you to learn the skills you need to work on the business better.
Hang on. Let's back up because you hit on something really important. What do you mean by that? Like my car, talk about this car and how this is an important turning point in the mindset of a business owner.
Yeah, well, as a business owner, a lot of times, you're riding around a lot. You're driving to the office and driving back home. Okay, so you at least got that, and
Yeah.
maybe you're lucky, and that's only 15 minutes. That's a half hour a day, but most of the time it's an hour each way. And a lot of times you're riding around meeting with customers, or you're going and looking at projects, or you're giving estimates, or you're so a lot of time is spent behind the windshield, or maybe you're taking that road trip, and that's all time that you can recapture to listen to audiobooks, listen
Mm,
to YouTube University. One of the best things I spend money on is $10 a month for YouTube Premium.
yeah.
And you get ad free and you can listen to it with the app closed, and you can listen to podcasts like this one. I mean, what a time to be alive where you can
Crazy.
listen to people who are two or three or four levels down down the video game, so to speak, that
Yeah.
are already conquering the things you're trying to conquer, and you can learn from them. 20 years ago, this wasn't
I,
possible, but
it's
today it is.
amazing. It's amazing that you're saying this. So my old business partner is a gentleman named Brian Tracy. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brian. He's a big author in the world of business improvement and self-improvement. And
I have,
years
yeah.
ago, he talked about turning your car into a university. And he drew an interesting parallel. He said, many of you listening have children in university, and you're paying for that university. And so for a course they're taking, they get 2 hours a week of instruction, or was it 8 hours a month of instruction, and it goes for 4 months. So do the math on how much that is, right? 8 times 4, 30-ish hours of instruction, and they're paying university level prices for that. How much time do you spend in your car that you could be educating yourself? You're already paying for your kid to go to university. All you have to do is buy an audiobook, listen to a pod. This podcast is free. Can you, and like you said, dial back the clock 20 years. How hard would it have been for me to have a coffee with you for an hour uninterrupted? A
Exactly.
guy who went from 0 to 100, did you say 120 or 150 employees?
150, yeah.
150, and then sold it and then started a tech company in the same space. It would honestly have been impossible unless I was that annoying guy next to you on the airplane.
You're exactly right. Like we can, and here's the other thing. Back then, you would have to buy tapes or CDs,
Cassettes.
from or yeah, or cassettes, yeah, from somebody that was trying to sell you something, and maybe they had done something similar to what you were trying to do, but you really couldn't go down the long tail and get lined up with the person who is just beyond where you're at. Like I think if you're at $1 million a year in revenue, you to listen to a talk with Elon Musk, you might as well, Elon is literally on Mars compared to where we're at in
Right.
in our businesses. So we need to be listening. If we're at 1 million and trying to get to 10, we need to listen to a keynote or a talk or a book from the guy or gal that's at 10 or 100. and how they got there. And now today you can find those people and learn from the person who's just beyond where you're at, and to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how you can get to where they're at, and then rinse and repeat. Versus, back in the day, maybe even just 10 or 20 years ago, it was only the big marquee names. You could read a book that Jack Welch wrote about how he was running GE, and sure, there's some good principles in there, but how's that really going to apply to your 10-person small business? And
Yeah.
and so these days, I mean, it's so much more accessible to learn the skills and tactics, the actual practical things you need to be doing to get to the next level.
This is a good interview. You know that.
I appreciate it. I'm
You're
having
doing a
fun.
good job. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk to the guy who's $800,000 a year right now. Let me just do the math here because I don't want to disrespect that level. 800,000 divided by 12. So their monthly sales is $66,000. Now, whether they're doing home renovations or pools or landscaping like you, they're doing 66 grand a month, which means which is amazing. You think about that.
Pretty good business.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic business. And yet there they are at 800,000. And this is what I hear. Dom, I'm just not profitable. Dom, I don't see my family. Dom, I can't get control. Dom, my guys are holding me back. Dom, my partner and I are not on the same page. I feel like we're stuck. We did 800 grand last year. We did 800 grand the year before that. We're now an $800,000 business, and maybe it's only an $800,000 market, which you and I know isn't true. So we got a guy listening right now who feels stuck at 800,000 or 900,000. What would you say if you were sitting for coffee with that guy?
Yeah, well, a lot of times, you're the answer to that question. You're laying in it. It's right there, and you almost can't see it. And the way that I have gotten unstuck in moments like that is, for instance, going back to the E-Myth and doing something that he talks about is developing an org chart for what my business would look like maybe at 3 or 4 or 5 times the revenue. And so maybe
Right.
there's I was like, oh, I can't see my family, and I don't have the team members I need because I can't afford them. And so it's like, okay, let's make an org chart like of how you would just love for the business to be at 3 or 4 times the revenue. So maybe there's a CFO, maybe there's a chief of operations, maybe there's a CMO, maybe there is somebody to help you with customer service. Maybe there's a full-time salesperson because you're doing that in your spare time. And so that you have this org chart, and it's like, well, I don't need that org chart because I don't have those people. Well, just go through the exercise, create it, write it down, maybe put it on the whiteboard,
Mm.
and all of these roles and goals, it's your name on most of them. So you're head of operations, you're head of sales, you're head of
I'm everything.
HR, you're
Yeah.
you're the head you're the head CFO, your chief of customer service. But at least now you have an idea of what these roles look like inside of this organization. And then try to get help in terms of fractional people that you can bring on that can
Right.
help you with to execute at a high level at maybe the CFO role. Maybe you can hire somebody for an hour a week fractionally on Upwork, or even traditionally say, hey, I'll pay you for an hour a week to come in and help me review the books and help me figure out where I'm losing money, and help me better price things.
Right.
And so what that does is two things. It helps you execute at a higher level, and it's a forcing function. It's kind of a tripwire that holds you accountable as the business owner to
Mm.
execute at a higher level than what you're doing right now. You can't afford to bring on that CFO full time right now because you only have 80K a month. And they make, like, a good one, 200 grand a year, but
Yeah.
maybe you can afford, 2 or 3 thousand a month to bring them on for 5 or 10 or 20 hours a month, to where they can help you stay accountable
Give
to
you
where you're
visibility.
messing up.
Right.
That's right. And so if you can look in ways to bring on a fractional CMO, a fractional CFO, maybe a consultant here or there who knows your industry and help you can execute at these roles
Mm.
that you're kind of running in your spare time, it can help unstuck the business and help you get to that next level, help you get to 2 or 3 million a year. And that's a working on your business thing. And
Yeah.
maybe that's something that you got to do, on Sunday when the phone's not ringing and there's not a bunch of problems. Maybe just 2 or 3 hours a week of that high leverage on the business time is how you get unstuck and how you go from self-employed to business owner.
Right.
Because at that level, this mythological business we're describing, you're kind of almost still in the self-employed zone, because if you leave, it all just goes,
Oh, absolutely.
it all just
100%. Yeah.
falls apart.
I think that's something unspoken. If I leave, this thing's done.
Yeah.
Right.
Can't even take a vacation longer than 24 hours. I get it. I've been there. But you want to get out of that self-employed zone into the business zone. And the way you get there is by working on the business, going through the exercise of things like I just
Yeah.
described. It's not fun and it's hard and we've never done it, but just get started. Just get in there and start working on it.
I
And
think
it'll start
the get started is the hard part. And then getting started is the hard part, and continuing is the discipline part. Hey,
That's right.
you made me think of a question. Did you use any sort of strategic planning? Like, did you ever on one of these Sundays when you pulled yourself away from family and went and squirreled yourself away in the office, did you ever sit down and write out a strategic plan of any sort? And how did that look?
Yeah, for me in both businesses, in my first business and my second, you know, planning and having a business plan and thinking about strategy is really important because it forces you to externalize and write down what your ideas are around how you're going
Yeah.
to be better than your competition, how you're going to outthink your
Mm,
competition, and what your value proposition of the business is. You know, what is it that I do differently, and why would somebody do business with me versus my competitors?
mm,
Really, strategic thinking really maps back to that. It's okay, well, it's because we offer this service that our competitors don't, or because we're priced better in this type
right.
of client and service than our competitors are. And so planning forces you to do that. Now, it's like the Mike Tyson quote, you know, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose. A lot of these things that you're kind of like externalizing don't actually manifest into
But that's
reality.
okay.
That's okay.
That's okay, because once you have a plan, you've got a fallback plan. It's
That's right.
people that don't have a plan, they just wander through the desert aimlessly with they don't get anywhere. I would imagine that in some of your initial plans, you sat down and said, "Hey, listen, I realized that homes with a yard or a lawn of this size, of this complexity, is our perfect customer." And
That's right.
I'm gonna make some things up. We don't want to do ride-on lawnmowers. We want to do push mowers. I don't want to deal with hedges and gardens. So we're going to deal. And so in your strategic plan, you started to say, hey, my ideal customer actually looks like this, and they happen to be in this neighborhood. And so now the strategic plan says, go find more of those customers.
Exactly. When
Is
when you're first getting started, you kind of do need to be all things to all people to get that first 100K,
hmm,
250K, just to get some momentum
just to
going
buy the equipment.
and figure out
Yeah.
you know, who you're going to be the best solution for, and who is your ideal customer, just to kind of get some trial and error going.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, you do need to niche down and figure out, okay, what is my value proposition and who is it to? And so value proposition is, if I'm your ideal customer, why would I do business with you versus anybody else? And the answer to that question always starts with because, and the answer is never, oh, because we have uniforms and we look nice, or our trucks are
Or
always
because we're the
clean. No.
cheapest, because
Yeah.
we
Or
won low
yeah.
bid.
Exactly. It never is that. It's because we have a proven system that makes sure the customer gets the service they want at the time they want it, and they don't have to hassle us to come back and fix something, or
Hmm.
because we do it in a way that our competitors don't, or because we actually show up on the day we're supposed to. It's always something different than your competitors are doing. And so strategic planning causes you to do that, because it's like, okay, well, this is my ideal customer. I need to figure out a system to serve them better than my competitors are. And a lot of times, you know, you have these goals and you have these plans, and so you make those, and that's great. But then let's look at what the systems and routines are to get there. And let's
Yeah.
spend all of our time on those routines and systems. What are the things we're doing on a daily basis? What is the sales system? What is the prospecting system? What are the routines that we're doing to get to that goal? Put that aside. Now let's work on the systems. That every time I've been stuck, it always comes down to, let's work on the routines and systems in the business, and how do we improve those?
I love it. And so somebody listening right now says, this isn't going to work for me. I don't have what this guy's got. I barely got any time. I got 3 kids sports and one's in special needs school. And I got employees, the worst employees you've ever seen in the world. This isn't going to work for me, but it sure is an interesting episode. What do you say to that guy?
Yeah, I've been there. One day I was driving into the office, and it was probably year 7 or 8 in my business. I probably had 70 employees at the time, and I was like, man, this sucks. I hate this.
Why does
I
this
don't,
suck?
yeah. I was like, man, I got a stack of vendor bills I got to pay.
Yeah.
Customers are late paying me, taxes out the yin yang. I don't like half the people that work for me. It's not a fun place to be. This sucks.
Wow.
Well,
You're a great sales guy. Let me
yeah, I've
buy
been
that.
there, been there.
I know, it's
And
horrible,
then,
isn't it?
so then something hit me. Um, I don't know where it came from, but I heard his voice in my head said, well, you built this. You created this,
It's yeah,
and as the founder, you get exactly the company culture you deserve. You get exactly the vibe you deserve. You get five pain in the butt employees. Well, you get exactly the employee and morale enthusiasm you deserve. You hired them, you
yeah,
built it, you created it. This is actually a reflection of
of
you.
me. Yeah,
Yeah. And so that's why running a business is one of the best personal development things you can ever do, because it's this thing that causes you to be self-aware, and it's this thing that causes you to understand,
personal
that it all
responsibility.
starts with you. Yeah, it starts with your enthusiasm, starts with your level of commitment. It starts with are you, do you show up with a smile and ask people how their weekend was, and actually give a crap how their weekend was? Do you care about your people?
Mm,
Do you care about your customer satisfaction? And if you don't, then don't expect anybody else in the organization to reflect that. And so that was a realization I had to like learn the hard way, and it took me about 2 or 3 years to fix myself and fix my business. So that's
yeah.
what I would say to anybody going through that I've been there, and that it does start with you, and you can fix it. And sometimes you got to go backwards, and take the business down to the studs to rebuild it the right way. So
Yeah,
that
I
person,
have so many questions for you right now. So remind me to come back to the transition, like what you did different when you started your second company, which is the tech company now, but it doesn't matter. Tech company versus landscaping. To me, it doesn't matter. A business is a business. You mentioned, and you threw out a number, 5 bad employees, but do you remember having a bad employee? The first one you realized Eddie is a bad egg. Did you ever have Eddie the bad egg on your team?
the problem is Eddie, that who's a bad egg, but fantastic at his job.
Excellent technician,
Yeah.
right?
I
Takes
mean,
care of his tools, cuts lawns faster than anybody else.
yeah,
Uh, yeah,
smart,
but
and just customers love Eddie, but he's a cancer in the business.
did you have Eddie?
Yeah, several times, and a lot. So sometimes there's a book called necessary. It's by the author's name is Dr. Henry Cloud, and I think the name of the book is Necessary Endings. And
Mm,
and so what that book talks about is is coming to the point of a necessary ending in a relationship, in your personal life or in your business. And most of the time, we suffer Eddie, and we try to stick them in a corner of the business, and we try to
he's the
isolate them.
best. Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is that you're making a weak decision. You're making a weak decision for everybody, for the business, for Eddie, and for
Mm,
everybody. It's not fair to everybody else that works in the business. And so it's actually the harder decision, and the right decision are the correct one. And you've reached that point of necessary endings, and you have to prune those people out, because if you don't, that stuff, you're going to pay the bill with interest at a certain point in time, and you really got to do it sooner than later. And I've made
yeah.
that mistake. We all have. And firing somebody really sucks, and you don't, and they are good, and so you make all these excuses.
And then
And then
we keep the cancer in the company.
that's
So
right.
let me pause for a moment. And I want to talk to the audience here because we're going to keep this conversation going just a little bit. You mentioned Eddie. Obviously, we made that name up. Eddie the bad egg. But for everybody listening, I want you to think about who that person is in your company right now. They are negative. They place blame. They make excuses. They're in denial about the drama that they cause. They eat up hours, if not days, of your time. You're constantly having to go back and fix the social problems they caused in your company. They have the kind of mindset that drags other people down. I want you to think of that person in your company. And Brian, can you tell me what happened? Now we're going to go back to Brian. After you let go of Eddie. Oh, you're already laughing. What happened in the company when you let go of Eddie?
Oh, well, this has happened probably in both businesses. It's probably happened about a half dozen times, and it's always a weight lifted off of your shoulders
Yeah.
because we carry our business around with us.
Oh, yeah. We wear our
All
uniform
the
on the inside, right?
We do
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
mean, small business is hard, and it really is your soul that you put into making your company tick and helping it prosper, and so you bring it around with you 7 days a week, and so it's almost like a weight is lifted off of your shoulders when you prune this person out. And it really is like a rose bush. You have to prune off the bad buds so the rest of the bush can flourish,
Right.
and that really is how it always unfolds when you get that person out and you replace them with somebody who maybe isn't as good technically, but you can train them on that and they get along better with everybody else. It really is like a rose bush where you prune off the bad limb, and the rest of the bush
What does
can
the rest of the
flourish.
team say to you? Like you let go of Eddie, and about an hour later, you're walking through the shop or you're on dispatch, and what do you hear?
You do get accolades, and you do get recognition for making a hard decision because they know that
Yeah,
it's
they
it's
do.
hard it's hard to fire somebody, and the good ones do appreciate it. The problem is when you let eddies multiply, and that bad attitude and that cancer multiplies and metastasizes in the rest of the business, and then that's when it gets out of hand, and then you got to figure out, okay, is this person influencing all the rest, and then you kind of
Oh,
have to experiment a little bit. I've been there and had to deal with that too. But if you're in a service business, 90% of the value is your ability to lead your team and your people skills and your leadership skills,
yeah.
because they are the product, they are the service, they are the competitive advantage. And so as the founder, as the owner of a service-based, people-based business,
Mm,
that is your competitive advantage, is the culture inside of the business and people's attitudes and overall vibe in the business. Getting the bad egg out soon and quick is
yeah.
the way you protect that culture. And
Yeah.
the other thing is don't hire Eddie in the first place.
So
You
I
know,
got to give you, I have to commend you. You actually, I don't know if you recognize this, but you do a very good job of talking about your role in making sure these things don't happen. So you actually take a high level of personal responsibility. All of your
oh,
stories
it's
have
all
come
you
back
have
to,
to.
well, but congratulations. I mean, you continue to come back to yourself and say, what I can control me. And it's
Exactly.
my company's a reflection of me. And so I didn't want to cut off your story, but you continually do that. So anybody listening, listen very carefully to Brian. He knows it starts with him.
Yeah, and the marketplace will beat that into your head as the founder of a small business or big business. The
Yeah.
marketplace is a relentless purveyor of feedback, and it's always going to tell you where your shortcomings are. Most businesses reach a bottleneck to the
Mm,
founder or owner's inadequacies. And so it's up to you as the founder, as the entrepreneur, to grow and develop past those. And so I didn't start that way, but once you start realizing that it really does all map back to a decision you made somewhere or something you're not doing right. And so the problem with Eddie is getting Eddie out quick. And
yeah.
the other problem is not hiring Eddie in the first place,
The
really
attitude.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out. And I mean, people are good at hiding those things. Sometimes you can't always get it perfect, but if you can develop an interview system to get to figure out who Eddie is, and before you bring him on, and then what the early signs, the warning signs of what Eddie looks like in maybe month one,
Yeah.
so you don't have to like have all of this baggage around Eddie, 3, 4, 5 years later, and all of this destruction, in his wake. So
I
that's how I've learned to deal with that kind of situation.
I have a joke about people can hide those things, especially in the interview stage.
Oh yeah,
So in the interview, I think I'm hiring Eva Longoria, but Rosie O'Donnell shows up to work. I'm like,
yeah,
what? How? Like there are people who know how to interview well,
yeah,
and then they
yeah.
show up as if they're in the union. as if the
Yeah,
longest tenured union member. And so you think you're hiring Eva Longoria, Rosie O'Donnell shows up to work. And I like what you said about the flags. I have found that, and just like the first day in high school with a new teacher, they set the rules hard. And at some point, somebody's getting kicked out of class because that teacher has to establish that they're the teacher. And you've got that
exactly.
buddy of yours who's like he's funny, but he's a loudmouth and he's interruptive. And what's that teacher going to do on the first day? Brian, please step out of the classroom. And now everybody's like, oh, Mr. Rubino's really serious. But
Yeah,
if I don't do that, if I allow that to continue on, then again, taking personal responsibility, I've allowed that cancer to spread. I've allowed that behavior that doesn't fit with my values, my mission, how we want to take care of our customers, how we want to take care of our equipment, how I want the gas filled in the truck when they go to the gas station with my card. Everything is right back to the culture that I allow in the business.
exactly. And here's the hard part. Nobody teaches us how to do any of this stuff. As
Well, sorry, that's no offense, but
as
that's supposed to be what I do.
well,
Maybe I'm not doing a very good job.
how many people reach out to you, and how many people even know to reach out to you, and the smart ones do, but the problem is we're not taught this stuff anywhere naturally
No,
in
you're never
life.
taught in school. No, in
You're
school we're
never.
taught to be followers, not leaders.
Exactly. And so you as a new business owner,
Yeah,
maybe you got one or two helpers, and you just kind of have to like figure this stuff out on your own, and you do it wrong for a long period of time, and then you get disenfranchised, and then you want to quit because you don't really know that you need to work on yourself and seek out a coach to help you with these things. And so but guess what? If you do this right long enough over a 10-year period of time, you evolve into a whole new person. And that's one of the cool things about running a business, is that you evolve and grow alongside it.
yeah. Let's talk about your evolution if you're okay. And by the way, folks, for those of you listening, Brian and I had a preset title. We're nowhere close to it, but
I
it's
think we've hit a few.
we've hit a couple of the high points. But actually, I think we've gone further because we were going to talk about 3 things you need to know. You're probably at 94 right now that you've shared with us. As much as you can share, how did selling your company or making it viable, or how did you move from landscaping company to landscaping app provider?
Well, it was really, really challenging selling that company. Everybody that has a service-based business, their dream, I think, is to eventually sell the business. I'd like to tell you I executed flawlessly on it. I had a 5-year plan and I worked the plan. The reality was I just had the idea. Like one day I was like, you know what, I want to explore getting this business acquired. And from the
Okay,
moment I had that idea, from the moment I got it done, was a little over 2 years. So I had to go backwards. I had to rebuild the business in such a way that
right.
made it attractive for a national company to buy it.
We talk about the company has to be buyable. Like I'm sure you
Exactly.
had to go and redo the books because the books, when you're going to
Yep.
sell the company, your accounting has to be done just slightly differently,
Yep. And the
right?
way
And you
you
have
run
to
it is
stop running
different.
pizzas through it so that because of normalized income and
Exactly. Yeah. And things that you would do running a family style business like what I had
for
versus
cash. Yeah.
versus running a business that you intend to get acquired are vastly different. So my advice is, make a 5-year plan. There's a great book called Built to Sell that walks you through the steps
Yeah.
to on how to pull something like this off, and try to be proactive, working in a proactive strategy to get the business acquired.
Yeah.
But that's not how I did it. I had to kind of reverse engineer a lot of things. Ended up getting the business bought, and after that, I took some time off. And my intention was to just do real estate investing and just kind of live the quote unquote good life.
Right.
But that got boring really quick. I
That's
got
the problem with real estate investing. Once you've invested, what do you wait 30 days for another check? And then it's
yeah,
hard to
you
get
just
excited about, it's, you can get excited about the returns, but it's not very active in many cases. And, you can do work on the properties, but it's meant to be a passive tool.
meant to be, and that's what's great about it. But it's not a
Yeah.
mission where you're going off and trying to create some new product or service. It's very, very kind of almost boring, and that's how I experienced it. And so I thought, well, I want to start a new business. What am I going to do
Mm.
now? And I thought, well, the last business was really hard. I don't want to do a hard business. I want to do an easy business. So I'm going to start a software company because that'll be so much easier.
Oh, I'm sure.
And boy, I didn't know what I didn't know. It was it
Yeah.
was it was naivete as an asset. But I recruited two co-founders, and I came up with this idea that, I saw what Uber and Airbnb were doing, and I thought
Mm,
somebody's going to make an app to make it as easy as pushing a button to get a grass cutting service.
yeah.
And so I thought, why not me and my team? And so I got in there, and we started working on the first version of the app, and realized, wow, this is a lot harder than we thought it was going to
It is
be.
a lot harder. Yeah.
But
I'm on the board of directors for a cybersecurity firm. They do
ah,
cloud security and application security. And you might think, what's Rubino doing on as the board of directors for a high tech firm? But business is business. It
at the
all
end of the
follows the
day, it
same
is.
flow. And you know what? And when you're on the board, it's a lot of it's business coaching like I normally do. Just around the table, we have presidents of other software companies and guys from banks and very high level tech people. And yet we all encounter the same issues. It comes down to, do we have the right people? Are we identifying the right customer? Do we have the right value proposition? Like you just said, it sounds like a software company, but you need the people to
Yeah.
run the software company.
Yeah, and you think that technology somehow abstracts all these things away, but it really doesn't. It comes down to a
Yeah.
lot of the same fundamentals. The thing that I didn't really understand and didn't really anticipate was we were inventing a brand new product, and we were inventing a new way
A
of
new
doing
category.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a lot harder than I anticipated. It took a lot of trial and error, a lot of just going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And we kind of just stuck it out. And we ended our first year with 20 customers, and then
I
we
laugh,
passed
but
out.
I've been there. I mean, it's
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we were like, well, at least if we got 20, I think I can get it to 100. And if I can get it to 100, I can get it to 1,000. If I get to 1,000, I get it to 10,
Mm,
and so on. And so we just kept working on the business and making the product better and better and better, figuring out new ways to get it in the hands of people to try it out.
right.
And little by little, we've built it into a nationwide service.
What congratulations on that. I don't want to blow past the efforts because, as you said, that's hard. It's easy saying the sentence, oh yeah, last year we went through a couple of tough times, and then every day of that, every hour is hard in that time. But I want to take you back to the how you did it. How big a part does strategic planning play in your business now?
Yeah, technology moves a lot quicker, and you can have competitors. If you're running a traditional service-based landscaping company like I had, it's pretty. You can see around the corners and you can see what competition is doing. But when you run a tech-based business, the old saying is like, somebody in a garage is hacking on something that's
Two
going to
high
give you
school
lunch.
kids. Yeah, they could be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's real. And so what we do is we just look at ways that, okay, how can we be the best in the world at something, and how can we be 10 times better than the status quo on one
Mm,
thing? And so what that does is it forces and clarifies your thinking to focus on just the one thing that matters, and not get bright shiny object syndrome where you're chasing all these other opportunities and you're not really the best in the market at any of them. And so we have focused on just one thing, this chore of outside there's vegetation and somebody has to cut it, and making that as easy as just pushing a button. And we've been doing it for 10 years. How do we make lawn mowing services cheaper,
even
faster,
easier.
more reliable, quicker, more convenient? And how do we make it to where contractors can make more money with less hassle? How can we make it to where they can
Yeah.
get paid, organize their routes so they don't have to spend time driving all over town, save money on gas? So figuring out ways to make it smoother for both sides of the
For
transaction
them. Yeah.
for everybody is what we spent the decade doing.
Well, I love it. Adding value.
That's
Um,
it.
Brian, this is just such a good interview. Thank you so much, because we covered a huge scope of territory here, and I hope everybody listening got a ton of takeaways. If somebody wants to find you in this wide world, where the heck do we find you?
Yeah, anybody that doesn't want to waste time mowing your yard, just go to greenpowel.com. Anybody wants to hit me up, Instagram's a good place to find me, Brian M. Clayton. Just drop me a DM there.
Excellent. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been excellent. I love talking to entrepreneurs because the vision that you talked about, and specifically this, and please, I do this for a living, so please take this as a huge compliment. You do an excellent job of taking personal responsibility. Every single thing you talked about came back to a recognition that you were the core of making the change instead of blaming
Well,
anything else. You're not blaming anybody.
I appreciate that, Dominic. It didn't start that way, but but the
You've said that
marketplace
about
has
three
taught me
times
that.
now. What we should have done is interviewed you 10 years ago and now, so we could have done,
There you go.
so we
That
could
would
have
have been
done,
ugly.
who is that Brian Clayton? Yeah. All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate your
Thanks,
time. Have a
Dominic.
great day.
I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Well, Mr. Brian Clayton, thank you so much for being our guest on the show. What a great interview. So much energy. And as you heard me say in the interview, and this is me being the business coach, I recognized, and I hope you did as well, that he is very aware of his role in guiding the direction of the company, of taking that personal responsibility. That, he said he had that really tough day. I think he said he was at 70 or so employees. He was having a really tough day. And he realized, hang on, this business is a reflection of me. I can change what I'll accept in the business. I can change who I bring into the business. I can do these things. If you're at that same stage, I want you to understand this is your company. When you sign a new sales agreement, contract with a customer, you've made a promise to that customer that you're going to do something. You're going to deliver something, repair something, fix something, demolish something, rebuild, whatever it is. Your name's on that. And if the people on your team aren't willing or able to help you do that and keep your name intact, then it's up to you to step in and say, hey, that's just not how we do it here. Working on Dominic's team, working on Brian's team, these are my expectations. And then we talked about Eddie the bad egg. Do you have a bad egg on your team? And listen, if you do and you just can't figure it out, shoot me a note. Let's have a quick conversation. I'll walk you through at least my experience in that. It doesn't matter whether you have you're a business owner on your own, or you have a partner, or it's a family business. Every situation is a little bit different, but we've got to deal with Eddie the bad egg, because you can't grow the business while you're strangling yourself at the same time, right? So you guys know how to reach out to me. My cell phone, just text me 604-837-8361 and just say, Dom, let's talk. And then, we'll talk, right? Anyways, lots of takeaways from Brian's episode. I really enjoyed it. Here's a favor that I need from you. And from the bottom of my heart, if you like this episode, if you like what you hear, I need your help. What I need you to do is leave feedback, leave a review somewhere. Go to Trustpilot, go back to the podcast where you downloaded this, and just leave a review, leave an honest review. I'm not asking you to leave a 5-star review, although it would be nice. If you think this episode sucked, leave a 1-star review, but tell somebody something. That's the only requirement that I have for listening to the show, is at some point tell a friend or tell the internet, whatever that might be. All right. The next episode used to be called Storytime with Dom, but now we've changed it. It's Questions and Answers with Dom. And as you will come to hear, there's a way for you to leave me a question that I'll answer live here on the episode. So you can actually send your questions in and I'm happy to answer them for you. Anyways, let's get to Questions and Answers with Dom, and we'll see you on the other side of that. Hi, everybody. Today's question and answer with Dom comes from Harold Burden. Now, Harold is a member of the Contractor Strategy Group on Facebook. If you're not a member, you should join. This question was posted by him a little while ago, and Harold runs Build Right Home Pros in Sheffield, Illinois. They do siding, windows, and decks. His big question is, how do I get the right customer every time? Well, let's answer that. Hi, we're answering a question here for Harold Burden from Build Right Home Pros in Sheffield, Illinois. He does siding, windows, and decks. His question is, how do I get the right customers every time? Well, that's a marketing question, and it's a good question. Thanks for posting that. So my first question back to you, and I'd like you to think about this as you're driving around or walking the dog or wherever you're listening to this podcast. How do you get incoming leads right now? So how does your business get notified of new business coming in right now? How are you going out to the market to ask for new business? And I'm going to ask you only two things. Is it random or is it targeted? So do you have this magic swirling box of I don't know what that spits out leads? Or do you have a targeted proactive system for bringing in leads? That's the very first thing. Now, what we need is data and information. I hope that you're not in the world of random. However, most people are. They rely on word of mouth. They rely on referrals. The problem with that, for getting the right customer every time, is that a bad customer is just as likely to refer to you as a good customer is. And we don't know when customers are going to refer each other to talk to us. And even when they do, it doesn't line up with when you and I need more work, right? So the first thing we need is we need data. We need some good information, just some basic information. And here's the basic information. You don't even need to go pull any reports for this. Where do the best jobs for you come from right now? And what I want you to do is sit down with a map of your city, of your town, of your state, wherever your territory is that you do work. Where do your best jobs come from now? Do you know where those best jobs come from? Plot them on a map. So if it's this neighborhood, if it's this type of general contractor who gives you sub work, list them. If it's architects or government officials or city planners that give you work, list them. Whatever it is, I want you to create that list. Once you have the list, you have the power, because now I can move you from being random in your marketing to targeted in your marketing. So item number one, let's make this a small SOP for how to get the right customers every time. Number one, make a heat map and plot it on paper. And so, like I say, that heat map is either a neighborhood that you really do great work in and you know it's profitable and it's close by, or it could be a list of people that you like to do work with, right? Number two, come up with a plan of attack. Notice very specifically my language. Come up with a plan of attack. If you want to have targeted leads and you want to bring the right customer to you, you just can't wait for randomness and hope and prayers and the winds of benefit to bring you things. You got to have a plan of attack. You have to look at that market. You have to look at that list and say, how am I going to get business from that list, from that map? And again, is it a list of homes? Is it a list of home addresses? Well, that's easy, by zip code or by postal code or by neighborhood or by whatever it is, right? Is it a list of general contractors? Is it a list of architects, government officials, designers, or city planners? Whatever your list is, come up with that plan of attack for them. Item number three, go! Exclamation mark. Just go. Target them with ads, with signage, with direct mail, with postcards, with letters, by meeting them in networking. Once you've identified who your perfect target is, go after that perfect target. It's that simple. How do I get the right customers every time? I can't hope and pray. Those are for other things in our life, hoping and praying. In business, you have to have a plan of attack and then go after them. And the final step, this little SOP for how to get the right customers every time, test and measure. See what works in your marketing. See what doesn't work in your marketing. Do more of what works. Do less of what doesn't. And that's how you become a proactive business owner who grows the right kind of business with the right kind of customers that brings you the right kind of jobs. Harold, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. If you want to leave a question for this segment of the show, it's called Questions and Answers with Dom. Just go to speakpipe.com/ask Dom, and you can leave your message there. It's super easy. You press a button, you record, it automatically comes to me. Thanks very much, Harold. Everybody else, have a great day.